Hello Internet, welcome back to the Experimental Cataclysm. This is the show, if you don't know, where we talk about some of the changes that have come to the experimental version of Cataclysm over the last 2 weeks or so. Mostly I talk about things that interest me personally, although if there are big mechanics we try to talk about that as well. Mostly there isn't really any mechanics changes, there's nothing that's super eye-catching this week. It's a lot of little stuff, but we're going to talk about it. So let's just dive in. First off, we have from Curse Twist, we added new gemstones and some jewelry to the game. This was multiple PRs. I saw that this one that's on screen specifically adds the gems to existence, as well as some jewelry that involves them. So here we see a diamond ring, some raw gemstones here. I mean, I assume they're not raw gemstones. They're probably worked in some capacity. Here are some gemstones attached to silver and gold earrings. I like it. I think there was also a PR that added like bangles or bracelets or something to the game. And then there was a third PR, and I just can't remember what that was off the top of my head. But basically, you're going to start seeing gemstones. I think it was a deconstruction so that you could take apart jewelry to get the gemstones themselves rather than as set in jewelry. So yeah, currently not a huge real impact in the game. I don't think gemstones really have a purpose. I assume they sell for a decent amount of money to traders, but largely this is just one of those things that makes sense in the world that should have existed probably for a long time, and it's nice to see them come to the game. Really not a lot you can do with them. I did see on Discord someone was streaming the other day and they basically just lined their bed with gold and silver. So I guess this is one thing you can add to, you could sleep with precious gems. Does that interest people? I don't know. But yeah, there were multiple PRs that addressed gemstones recently. Wanted to shout that out, let you know that they exist. Next, something that's a little bit more exciting to me from Mail Clips or Mail Eclipse, we have Tameable reproducing rabbits. So you're probably familiar, we currently had, prior to this change, we had cattle. I think you could tame horses. I want to say you couldn't tame sheep, or maybe you could. And then there were chickens, of course. I've never messed with the animals in Cataclysm. They're just meat sources to me. I don't usually get the chickens or anything like that. However, I know that a lot of people do. People like the idea of taming their own livestock. And yeah, this adds rabbits to the game as tameable creatures. They use the cattle fodder tag, which as far as I know means you can tame them with cattle fodder. I don't know if that's craftable or if it's just hay or how that works exactly. But yeah, rabbits added to the game. They specifically say they're going to add a cabin layout with a rabbit hutch, which is a pretty neat thing to do, and it will let people know that cattle's, possibly let people know that rabbits are something you can tame in the game without them having to look at the PRs and know that that's a possibility. Other than that, they do reproduce. I really like this. A lot of, like, I like farming games. Don't judge me. I'm a casual gamer in a lot of ways. And most games really overlook the fact that rabbits are something that are commonly kept as, like, raising animals. And they do that because rabbits are primarily raised for meat. Like, yes, and don't leave me comments about how you can get wool from rabbits and some rabbits are raised for their hair. I don't care. I live in a small country town. The only people I know who raise rabbits eat them. So it's like, to me, they're meat. So they often get left out of like farming video games and things like that. So I was pretty interested to see this show up on the old GitHub because they're often overlooked, and I like the idea of being able to raise rabbits in game. It's something I've never really done with the animals in Cataclysm, and yeah, it's definitely something I'm probably going to check out. So yeah, pretty cool. I just wanted to let you know that is now a possibility. Next, from David P.W. Brown, you'll remember a while back that we got the ability to auto travel on the world map, as well as auto drive to some extent, although it was a bit buggy last time I played with it. This simply adds the ability to auto boat. So if you're in a boat as opposed to a car, you should now be able to auto boat over a short. Again, it doesn't really avoid obstacles last I checked, so I would be cautious. But on the plus side, there's really not a lot you can collide with in the water. The water of Cataclysm is still largely empty, so should just be, allowing you to auto Autoboat. So not a lot to say about it, but it is a neat little thing. What is interesting to me is that this is definitely a feature, and I think I maybe don't understand what a feature freeze is, because I really thought that meant that they were not gonna add new features until they got the stable out. So I really don't know how that works. In fact, if you remember a couple weeks ago, like a month or two ago, I said that I kind of thought it would be the next stable before Christmas. Obviously, that hasn't happened, which is fine. It was just an arbitrary date that I pulled out of my head. But yeah, it was a little peculiar for me to see a feature added. I think I just don't understand GitHub and the project and stuff. I'm not very up to, despite doing this show, I want to be really clear, I'm in no way attached to the development team or anything like that. I have no idea what's going on most of the time. I just talk to people on Discord and read the GitHub. So I'm in the dark as well. It's not like I have inside knowledge or anything. Next, from Knight, we have a PR that tweaks the locker smash results. And I wanted to point this out because this is something I do basically in every single game I've ever played. One of the first things I do when I get in game is try to find a locker or shelving units or something of that sort, smash it, grab a chunk of steel, grab a pipe, and make myself a makeshift crowbar. And the reason I default to the makeshift crowbar is because it has the prying ability, and because the metal that you require to make it is available in basically every starting scenario. With this change, that has changed slightly. So previously, you would basically always get a chunk of steel, which had the hammering ability, and you would always get a pipe, which were the two requirements for making the crowbar, was hammering and a pipe. And this has been changed. So now, one, pipes only drop at about a 50% chance instead of being guaranteed. And I've already noticed this in the game. You're not really getting pipes as often as you used to get them. Very obvious change. And then additionally, they no longer drop chunks of steel, which was the only material that drops from lockers that had the hammering ability. Now, hammering 1 is still pretty easy to find. In fact, pipes have hammering, I believe. But since hammering was removed from planks, and because rocks are not always common in starting scenarios, it can be a little tricky to make this happen now. Ultimately, I think this is a pretty good change, because I think chunks of steel are meant to be large, like hunks of steel. And it doesn't really make sense to come from a locker, which is going to be primarily like sheet metal. So I think that this is a fine change, especially because you are smashing. It's not something you're deconstructing. So like if we look at this example that's posted here, there's really nothing here that would be big chunks that you could very easily hammer. Although I kind of feel like anything, well, I don't know. I don't want to say it's a bad change. I don't think it is. I think it's a good change. Of course, again, it does make the starts a little bit more difficult. And I just wanted to mention this. It's such a tiny thing, but I do think that a lot of people kind of do exactly what I described, where the crowbar is their go-to starter weapon. And because you want prying pretty much no matter what. So definitely worth noting that you're going to struggle a little bit more to find the materials necessary from lockers anyway. Shelving units, as far as I know, are unchanged, so if you can find shelves, you're still going to find your materials. But yeah, definitely worth mentioning here. Next from Sim, we have basically his goal here is to prevent non-fouling guns from spawning with fouling. So every couple, hours probably on Discord, I have someone pop up and say, hey, why does my insert non-black powder gun have black powder fouling? I don't understand. Like, why does my laser rifle have fouling? And it's like, yeah, that's an oversight, probably a mistake. I'm pretty sure that's what this is addressing. And I'm pretty sure that's the whole point of this PR, was just to prevent some of these non-gunpowder weapons from spawning with fouling. So hopefully that will reduce the number of people experiencing that problem. I don't know if they hit every single one or not, or if it's just, it appears to be a flag. So basically, they may have missed a weapon or two that still did not get this flag. So if you happen to see any weapons that, missed it, let somebody know. But otherwise, great change. Hopefully cuts down on some of the complaining. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to complain about, but also you do get tired of hearing the same things over and over and over. So hopefully that sorts that out. Next, there were several PRs that addressed the items in the Evac shelter. specifically expanding those item groups so that they have more variety. I went to the Evac shelters, I think in the last episode of Experimental Cataclysm, but even if not, I've been there a couple times since then just to check things out. And it predominantly spawned flyers and the nutrient, what are they called? The rations. Those were really the things that spawned most commonly in the Evac shelter, and it was a little bit lackluster because it was basically just piles of the same thing over and over and over. And so there were 2 or 3 separate PRs that were addressing the variety in shelters, and here we have one from Jeremy. This is just the one I happened to pick up. I don't know who did the others or what's going on there. Or if they conflict with each other or how that works. But yeah, basically just to expand the different things that show up. So for instance, here they give the example of plastic ponchos, the occasional headlamp, mirror, jug of vinegar, or barometer. Not sure. I think, does FEMA give out... I don't know why there would be a jug of vinegar. I'm sure there's a reason for it. You can read the PR. I don't know if they mention why jug of vinegar. That does strike me as something they may disseminate, but I don't know that that's like a really common thing. Well, they do specify it's a rare. Anyway, yeah, it's just it's to add a little bit more variety and give a little bit more supplies. And here I've popped in the shelter. I like to show a little bit of gameplay in every episode. You'll see this is basically what I was talking about. Most of the lockers and things held the same basic items. Plastic cutlery, the Evac pamphlets, a handful of rations, and then like the occasional bit of emergency food. See, this time we had a flashlight. And you'll see even the other lockers have basically the same exact stuff in them. In fact, once again, basically the same stuff. So I'm not actually seeing any of the new items, unless I'm mistaken about what was a new item. Man, just 20 rations sitting in that. It's a lot of stuff. Emergency blankets and jackets, protein rations. Man, there's a ton of stuff in these things. This seems to be, I don't think we got anything interesting or unique. It seems to be the same basic stuff. Although, again, I'm not up to date on the other PRs, so for all I know, getting the specific use storage for this, where it's just blankets and jackets, that could be new. I really don't know. So I really should have maybe done a little bit more research before I showed this off. So yeah, let's just move on because I don't know what I'm talking about. Speaking of specific use storage, I don't know if we ever talked about specific use storage. It's basically organizing things in Cataclysm so that they make more sense, is basically how I would dumb that real far down. You probably noticed it now where, like previously, if we went to, let's say we went in a kitchen 6 months ago in Cataclysm, odds were good you were going to find a cabinet that maybe had like a pot in it, a knife in it, and a can of food. Right? And that's generally not how people organize their kitchens. And so nowadays, if you go into a kitchen in Cataclysm, you're more likely to find a cabinet that's just cutlery, a cabinet that's just pots and pans, a cabinet that's just canned goods, that kind of stuff. It's been broken down so that these specific, like you can just plop down a cabinet, that specific cabinet will have a specific type of item in it, so that it's a little bit less random and a little bit more cohesive. It makes more sense in how people actually organize their kitchens. And we've seen a lot of movement with this. I think it's a really great idea, and I'm really happy to see that come to Cataclysm. It adds a lot more sense to the world. But we've also seen that, so kitchens are probably the place you notice it the most because they have the highest cupboard density of any of the rooms. But it's also been something that's making an appearance in like bathrooms. And so there's been several PRs about, adding these things to different areas of the game. And then here we have one from Imber or Yimber or whatever, who is basically overhauling the library map gen and adding the specific use storage bookcases so that they, again, will make a little bit more sense. I would assume that they're broken up into categories instead of just being a random assortment of books thrown together in one cupboard, in one shelf rather. So here I've found myself a library that we can show off. So for instance, here we have what is clearly a novel specific use storage. There's not anything of value on this pile other than novels that are recreational. Here we have another section of novels. I assume that they've organized the entire shelf like area into novels only. Novels, novels. Here we have more valuable books, of course. And it appears to be specifically both weapons and armor, seems like. I think antique adornments, comprehensive illustrated history of crown, bracelet, necklace, and others. So these are more historical books and weapon books, so that's interesting. Here we have books on fuel and books on chemistry, which makes sense to go together. We have another chemistry textbook. This seems to be crafty type stuff. And so, but anyway, the point is that they're broken down into more cohesive groups so that they make a little bit more sense on these books being placed together. So, yeah, more specific use storage in the game is very good. Here we have a collection of sewing books all together. And so this would be, of course, one, it makes looking through a library so much easier, because previously you'd have to go through and say, okay, well, this pile has, 3 novels on it that I don't want, and it has 2 random skill books that I want, and I kind of have to pick them out one at a time. So it does definitely make that a little bit easier. It also seems to add a lot of redundant copies, but that may just be in preparation for adding the loot scarcity down the road, because if we have multiple copies, it would be more likely to stick around for longer. I don't know if that's actually the reasoning behind that or not, but certainly there's a lot of paper in libraries that didn't used to be there. So it's a pretty neat change. Again, specific use storage makes the world feel a little bit more organic, a little bit more like the real world. Really like those kind of changes, so pretty happy to see that make a difference. Next, I couldn't actually find a PR for this. I could only find the changes that were made. But basically, the goal here is to add riot control turrets and make them more common than the lethal variants. So this seems to be Urk's doing. Basically, when you're out in the world and you come across a barricade or wherever you find a turret out in the world, it is much more likely to be one of these non-lethal turrets than one of the lethal variety. I imagine that military bases and labs still have the lethal variants of turrets, but there was a sponge turret added to the game, which is just, instead of being a turret with a machine gun, it's a turret that fires these sponge rounds that deliver pain on impact, and still deals a small amount of damage. So these exist. They are more common now than the lethal turrets out in the world, so keeping an eye out. You're going to be able to approach certain turrets if need be. This is a real nerf to them, considering that they've recently been beefed up so much with range increases and higher caliber firearms that were much more dangerous. It's kind of nice to see them take a step back and say, okay, well, we're going to make these non-lethal. And it makes more sense in the world of Cataclysm that you would not want to be deploying all of these lethal turrets out among society, right? You would be putting out non-lethal turrets, trying to maintain the appearance that everything is going to be okay, rather than having civilians being shot in the street. So, yeah, really like this change. Yeah, again, could not find the PR for it for some reason, so I'm just leaning on this. Next, also from Ember, we got update zombie soldier drops. Basically, this standardizes a lot of the loot that you find on soldier zombies. This is good and bad. There are some things that are reduced that people pointed out might be an issue, like it's much harder to find laser sights currently in the game because you would really only find them on zombie soldiers. But yeah, it basically standardizes their equipment, so you're more likely to find the standard military gear that you would expect to find on a soldier zombie, adding MREs, things like that you would expect to find on a soldier. So pretty neat little change. We're going to take a look at that as well. So here I've spawned a group of zombie soldiers. We're going to just real quick kill them and see what we get off. My god, that was loud. Okay. Oh, we also killed 2 chipmunks. That's not cool. So here we have an example. M4A1 is pretty standard issue military rifle for American soldiers anyway. You'll see they have basic soldier gear. They also came with 2 MREs. If we hop one over, you'll see once again, that's literally almost identical. So again, we have the M4A1, we have an entrenching tool, and we have MREs as well as miscellaneous military gear. Hop over here, M4A1. Really cool that they have 3 grenades on them. I never used to find grenades in game, so that's really neat. Again, pretty standard equipment. Pack of cigarettes. They all seem to come with the 2-way radio as well, which again makes sense. M4A1. So my immediate takeaways from this are, 1, M4's way super common. You should basically kill every soldier zombie you see because it's going to reliably drop an M4A1 that, according to what I'm seeing here, is not going to be taking any damage. Usually when you find a gun on a soldier zombie, it's basically dead and damaged to the point where it's not usable, which really irritates me personally because guns are a little bit more resilient than people give them credit for, especially like an M4. But more than that, it's going to come with ammunition on basically every soldier zombie, which is pretty good, and it fires 223, which is pretty, very common ammunition. Additionally, I would say that MREs are extremely common, and I don't often eat MREs in the game. They usually go in my non-perishable food pile, and then I end up never needing to eat them. But for a new player, if you're on day 3 and you come across a soldier zombie and you think you can put him down, you can get a whole lot of calories out of just these 2 MREs that you would get off the corpse. Specifically, these 2-way radios all seem to have disposable batteries in them, which, light batteries are not exactly difficult to come by, but it never hurts to have a few more. Another M4, another entrenching tool, 3 MREs. So yeah, it seems like they've really standardized the equipment to the point where every single creature is carrying the same thing. I would like to see sidearms on some of these gentlemen. I'm pretty sure I don't know how often they actually carry sidearms on them, but my brain says they should probably appear on at least some of these corpses. We've only seen the one with a different weapon. Here's an M249. So that as well, I did not think that M4s were actually standard issue. I thought M16s were standard issue and M4s were so I don't know the military, so maybe I shouldn't say, but I had a girlfriend that was in the Army, and she said that M4s, they only gave M4s to girls because they were smaller guns. God, I hope that's not... I kind of hope it's true so I don't sound like an asshole, but I don't know if that's true. Anyway, M27 is a different gun as well. So they, standardized equipment. It seems like they're a great place to find canteens and 223 rifles as well as MREs, but you're going to find a little less variety here than there used to be. So, I like this change. It's certainly going to benefit players who can take down a soldier zombie because you're basically guaranteed a military-style rifle. And then finally, from Night, we have a significant rework to the prison island, or the island prison, rather. Now, I did a playthrough of the island prison 4 months ago, escaped. I had a lot to say about it. I know that they went in and made some changes after I complained about a bunch of stuff. And then just recently I tried it again and my game completely broke. I didn't have the right zombie spawns and whatever. And I feel real bad about it because now they've updated the island prison again and I'm kind of burnt out on it. I don't want to go do it again. But this seems to have made a lot of really significant changes that are really difficult. Specifically in my Let's Play, I did complain about how wood doors are very, very easily circumvented. And so they've been replaced with metal doors, which are much harder to circumvent. Specifically, the metal door to the armory is now unlocked via a computer terminal, which means you can no longer just pick your way into the armory, which is a real big deal because the armory is where I was going to get my proper armor, a lot of times, and possibly firearms. Next, also the flimsy fences that I think I complain about a lot in my series. I complain a lot, don't take it personally. But the exterior fence of the building used to be just chain link fence, and I remember pointing out how silly that is. I even saw someone on Discord, they said, why does the island prison even need a fence? It's on an island. It's yeah, but people could just swim off the island if you don't have a fence. But anyway, yeah, so the flimsy exterior fence has been replaced by a much sturdier set of metal bars and grates. This is a big deal because you're not going to be able to get in there. Most of the basic monsters aren't going to be able to destroy this barricade, and the player is probably not going to be able to destroy this barricade. There are hulks, there are gutters and downspouts now. There's some other things here. It's definitely worth checking out if you have not checked it out. I don't know if it's something I'm going to be doing anytime soon. One, it sounds so much harder now, and I honestly just don't think I'm good enough to actually make it off the island, given that there is some scary stuff going on in this map gen now. It's a cool change, and it's meant to be a challenge scenario, so you should go in expecting it to be difficult. But yeah, I'm just a little burnt out on it at the moment, so I don't think I'm going to be checking it out. And I wasn't even going to show you the scenario because I didn't want to spoiler it or anything. But I do think we'll pop in just for a second to get an idea. So if you don't want spoilers on the prison island, you can jump ahead now. This is the last PR we're going to be covering, so if you just want to pop out of the video, that's fine. But we're going to check out a little bit the prison island just to take a look around and see what we've got going on from the exterior. That is not going to work for me. Let's give me, I don't want the clairvoyance. I don't want to reveal everything. I do hear them smashing chain link fences, and we hear a voice that says universal curfew is in effect. Is that how you spell curfew? I don't think I've ever seen the word curfew written down before. Please return to your home. The unit is authorized to open fire. And you hear a bang. So there's clearly a robot outside that is being a jerk. Let's pop out. See a brute. So here we can see the exterior fence has been replaced with proper bars and concrete pillars, which is pretty great. That's exactly more or less what you would expect to find at a prison exterior. Generally, it's razor wire accompanied by concrete and reinforced chain fences. It's not like chain link. It's generally much, I don't know how to, one, it has a coating on it that makes it much more durable and not very cuttable. And two, they're very thick gauge wires, so it's I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, you have Google, you know how to Google things. This is the helipad. So we do see a lot of monster density, including brutes, which is very difficult to deal with in the early game. It's much more difficult to access the interior of the prison. I'm guessing it was concrete the whole time. Let's take a look at what the door of the armory looks like. So we'll hop over here. There's a zombie cop in here. We hear bang. Yeah. It does look like the layout was changed slightly since I was here last. So I thought the armory was here. Go ahead and give me a clairvoyance artifact. Okay. So let's hop over here. So we'll see there's a metal shutter door, which you cannot pick. I don't believe you can. Can you pick those doors? You may be able to pick those doors. Closed bar door. No, this is not pickable. This is probably pickable. So we would need to interact with the computer console in order to get access to the armory, which previously was just a wooden door, and then it was replaced with a pickable door, which of course are very easy to circumvent. Wood doors make sense out here in the, like, I guess this is a barracks area for, I don't know, guards, I guess. This is the administration building, so wood doors in this area make sense. If there was any kind of lockdown on the exterior, like say this was a nursing station, it would have one door that would be reinforced, and then the interior doors probably would be wood. So if we look inside here, we would expect, you know, I don't want to look in the prison. I don't want to reveal too much spoilery type stuff. So yeah, I think we're going to call it there. I just wanted to show and take a peek a little bit. Like I said, I'm a little burnt out on these at the moment, so I don't know that I'm going to be coming here anytime soon. And honestly, based on these changes that have been made, I don't know that I have the skill required or patience, probably more likely the patience to actually overcome this challenge. So yeah, I'm also noticing this seems to be different. Concrete railing. Yeah, this used to be just regular railing. So that's interesting that was changed as well. But anyway, yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, so I think that's it for this episode. So for now, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If I missed anything, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Honestly, this week I just went off of the changelogs. I didn't actually look at GitHub very much this week. Didn't do as much research as I normally would. Trying to hammer out some other things, get my YouTube schedule back on track. But yeah, it's going to do it. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Remember to check out my current Let's Play of Cataclysm on the channel, which is our Fire series. And I'll be back with more in the near future. Thanks for being here. See you next time.